Hi, good to be speaking to you today. My name's Daniel Goodman. I'm one of the leaders at City Church, Cambridge. And I want to talk to you today about hospitality. I think the most important thing that I have learned. And 5 tips to help you do hospitality that are simple, powerful, effective, and easy to immediately put into action. One of the things we've been doing is a podcast twice a week. 2 of us will have a conversation for about 40 minutes or an hour, just asking them their story, getting them to share some of the highlights and lowlights from their life. We've got through about 30 people, I think, so far. And what it means is people at home can connect with other people in the church relationally, and it's something you can do without having to look at a screen. The reason I tell you that is because I've had the privilege of doing those interviews. And as I've talked to people, what's really struck me is the power of hospitality, the power of welcome in people's stories, either because they received a really warm welcome and that had a positive effect, or because they didn't receive a really warm welcome and that had a very negative effect. As I was walking and praying about these reflections, I really felt conviction from God. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? What a great question. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. As I prayed about this and reflected, I thought, as a leader in the church, as a preacher, as a teacher, I feel I've done all that I can to equip the church to love God. But Jesus didn't stop there, did he? He replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the laws and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. As I prayed and reflected, I felt a deep sense of conviction that I hadn't equipped the church to do that in the same way that I'd equipped them to love God. And so I feel that God is speaking to me and to us about hospitality. One of the things Laura Bennett says is that when the church is forced into homes, the battleground shouldn't be creating great content. The battleground should be creating great connection. Great content is helpful and it's important, but far more important is great connection. Let me tell you a funny story I heard recently. One of the people I was talking to in one of these podcasts was telling their experience of the early days of the internet back in the mid-90s. She was walking along the high street one day and she came to a shop that she wanted to go into, but it looked like the front door to this shop didn't have any handles and she wasn't quite sure how to get in. It just so happened that this shop window had a number of signs in it, and one of the signs said www.next.co.uk, click to enter. And given that this was the early days of the internet, she hadn't really come across this before. She looked at this sign and she thought, oh, click to enter. And so she stood there in front of this shop on the high street and went. She honestly tried to enter the shop by clicking and entering. She couldn't get in. I wonder how many people come to our churches and feel like they can't get in. There's this thing we do, the Sunday service, that we're not able to do in person at the moment. But although I think we've learnt that the building is not the church, I think sometimes we forget that actually, although the building is not the church, neither is the meeting the church. The people are the church. And it's really important that when people come to church that they get a welcome. And just because we're not able to meet in large groups at the moment doesn't mean that we can't invite people into our lives and into our homes. Years ago, I heard someone say that they thought the Sunday service is the growth engine of the church. I think there might be some truth to that, but as I've reflected over the years, I think maybe the kitchen table is the growth engine of the church. A growth engine in terms of seeing people saved and added, but also a growth engine in terms of seeing people mature. When we sit around a table and we listen and we share and we talk and we know each other, amazing things can happen. When you're maybe entertaining people, you aim to impress them. But when you're showing hospitality, the aim is to bless. If we are able to show hospitality to one another, we'll be able to safeguard our unity. I think in the days ahead, the church is going to experience increasing pressure on its unity, from lockdown to eased restrictions. How will we meet? Where will we meet? How will it work? In the past few years, we've had things like the financial crash. The country has gone through the Brexit vote, independence vote in Scotland. All these things bring pressure on the church for disunity. Being in one another's homes, being in one another's lives is going to safeguard our unity. It's also true that we should practice hospitality. We should welcome one another because Jesus welcomed us. And so as we welcome one another and look after each other, we are being like Christ, and we are demonstrating Christ to one another. We are living out the gospel. Traditionally on Sunday mornings, church services have happened in rows, but hospitality offers something different. We can invite people not into rows, but into circles, into relationship with one another, into hospitality, into conversation. One thing I've found about myself is that as I've served other people, part of me has come alive in that. I think one of the things I found difficult about really restricted lockdown was that I wasn't able to serve people in the way that I had before. But now that we're able to have a few people round for a meal, I take great joy in being able to prepare a meal for them, even if it's just something as simple as tidying the house. I think we were created to serve, and there's something about us that comes alive when we serve one another. As a church, I know you've been studying the book of Acts. In Acts 2, you get this lovely summary, the big 4 things that the church devoted themselves to. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. They devoted themselves to fellowship. The idea with hospitality isn't to invite people into our perfect homes, but to invite people into our imperfect lives. I once heard someone say, if you want to come and see my home, make an appointment. But if you want to come and see me, come on in. And I think that's right. People don't want to be impressed. They want to be blessed. So let me give you 5 tips. So number 1 is just to ask people 3 things they like and 3 things they don't like. So often when we're setting up hospitality, we do that via email. Would you like to come round on such and such a day? Let us know 3 foods you like and 3 foods you don't like. We can't promise to supply those things, but we can avoid things you don't like, especially. A second really important tip, I think perhaps the most important, is when you've got guests coming over, even if you've invited them around for the first time and you've never met them, I would advise you to get them involved. When people come round to our house, we ask them to help with the washing up or making the teas and coffees. You might think that's a bit strange, but actually it gives them a way to participate in what's happening, and often it makes the whole thing run more smoothly, and it gives you opportunities to talk side by side rather than face to face. So invite people to help you out. A third tip would be to give people some idea of when to arrive and when to leave. I'm an extrovert, so I could talk to people all day, every day, but my wife's more of an introvert, and for her, it's really important that people have an expectation that they'll arrive roughly at a certain time and that they'll leave roughly at a certain time. So when we invite people round, we'll give them a date, but we'll also give them a time. Perhaps you'd like to come round tomorrow evening from 6 to 8. That just helps everyone's expectations. Another one I've learnt, and this might have come from sort of more of the Eastern culture that I grew up in Africa, but take special care with greetings and farewells. When I know someone's coming over, I try to make sure that they don't stand on the doorstep waiting for me to come and let them in, especially if I know they're coming. If I know they're coming, I'll be looking out for them. If I see them driving up to the door, I'll come out and greet them on the driveway and make a special fuss of them. And the same when they leave. It's really important to go with your guests outside and wave them off and really make them feel special when they arrive and when they leave. Finally, one that I've learnt from Nicky Gumbel through all of his work with Alpha: listening is as close to loving as makes no difference. If you can listen to people, you can love them. So ask good questions, open questions, and then really listen to what people are saying. We're really good at presenting this kind of glamorous life in social media, but I think we've lost the art of conversation around the kitchen table. The kitchen table is the growth engine of the church, so listen to one another. Remember, hospitality isn't about entertaining, it's about engaging.